region. In partnership with our division Global Ties San Francisco, we coordinate professional international exchanges, bringing people together from around the world to share ideas, learn from each other, and form important connections. We are honored to facilitate the U.S. State Department's premier cultural diplomacy program, the Ivlp, hosting almost 1,000 international visitors annually. Of course, those are pre-COVID numbers. We are also honored to work with Global Ties US and its nationwide network of exchange professionals. We are very excited to have Katherine Brown, the CEO of Global Ties US, moderating our discussion today. Katherine, thank you so much for being here with all of our esteemed panelists. Before I hand over the program to you, I just want to remind our attendees that you will all remain on mute for the duration. If we do have open time for Q&A, we will invite folks to use the either the chat box or the Q&A function. So Katherine, once again, thank you, and I'm handing it off to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Ilana. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Katherine Brown. I'm President and CEO of Global Ties US, which represents the largest and oldest citizen and subnational diplomacy network in the country. And we're very proud to have as our members and partners the World Trade Center of Northern California and Global Ties San Francisco. So honored to be here today. And as a native Californian, originally from Los Altos, we will be moderating discussion on the role diplomacy plays in California's prominent position on our world stage, the important international relationships that contribute to the state's success, and how the state can continue to influence policy and maintain its global impact. We don't have a lot of time together, so I just want to briefly introduce our esteemed speakers and encourage all of you to check out their bios, which I understand you'll see in the chat and also are on the webpage for this event. So first, Ambassador Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis, Liliana Ferrer, the Consul General to Mexico in Sacramento, and Susanne Stirling, Vice President of International Affairs at the California Chamber of Commerce. So again, please do check out their bios. There's lots to cover, lots to see about their backgrounds. But I'm first going to go to the Lieutenant Governor, who has very little time with us, and then move to a larger discussion with Liliana and Susanne. So I'm thrilled now to introduce Ambassador Kounalakis as our former, she's our former ambassador to Hungary and the 50th Lieutenant Governor of California, and the first woman ever to be elected to that position. Lieutenant Governor, over to you.
Thank you so much, Katherine, and thank you to the World Trade Center of Northern California and to the Global Ties San Francisco for hosting this event. Let me also just quickly say hello to Susanne and Liliana, my friends who I miss and have enjoyed so much working with. It has been just over 2 years since Governor Newsom and I were sworn in, and since he appointed me to be his representative for international affairs and trade development. Immediately upon taking office, the governor began to put in place some important structures to support our international diplomatic efforts. First, he established by executive order an interagency committee on international trade, which meets quarterly and is open to the public. This committee, which the governor asked me to chair, has already proven very effective in improving communication and cooperation across state government. The governor also established a high-level team of international trade specialists assigned by region and housed within the governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. These trade specialists focus exclusively on our international relationships and leverage the full capabilities of GoBiz to expand foreign direct investment into our state. Finally, we've rolled out the red carpet for visiting delegations and reinvested in our efforts to share best practices with experts from around the world. During the past year, our ability to travel and to welcome delegations has been severely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. But the pandemic has not ended international engagement. On the contrary, it has made our foreign partnerships more important than ever, as we've all been focused on protecting the health of our people and the resiliency of our economies. And while COVID-19 has changed how we work, the 3 major international priorities for California, which have emerged since the governor established our new framework, remain the same. These three priorities are immigration, trade, and climate. I'd like to touch very briefly on all three. If you've ever heard me speak before, you already know how proud I am of California's diversity. 27% of us are foreign born, and half of us, myself included, have at least one immigrant parent. Our diversity makes us stronger, younger, more innovative, and more resilient, and has been a primary driver of California's economic success. California welcomes people from around the world who come as students, business people, entrepreneurs, tourists, asylum seekers, and of course, immigrants. Immigration has enriched our society and bolstered our economy. We are encouraged to see that the incoming Biden-Harris administration is advancing immigration policies that are more in line with our California values. These new policies are more humane, more just, and recognize the realities of historic immigration patterns, as well as the families affected by them. The second international priority I'd like to talk about is trade, which has helped to make California the 5th largest economy in the world. 1 out of 5 California jobs are associated with trade and tourism. For years now, California has ranked first in the country in exports and first in foreign direct investment. In 2019, 730,000 California jobs were related to FDI, generating an estimated $65 billion in wages. And that same year, 18 million international visitors came to our state, spending an estimated $28 billion at hotels, restaurants, and shops, resulting in millions of dollars tax revenue for local governments. Exports from California were down a little more than 10% in 2020, far less than projected in March, and imports were down 3%. Several key actions helped keep trade moving during the pandemic. Federal stimulus funds allocated by Congress allowed companies to hold on to employees and meet payroll when the future was at its most uncertain. The third and final of California's international priorities is also the one where our leadership means the most: combating climate change. Several years ago, when the Trump administration announced its withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord, Nobel Prize-winning scientist Mario Molina said, "The global community is looking to California as one of the world's largest economies to take the lead." We did. At home, we have proven that we can grow our economy while slashing emissions. Governor Newsom successfully defended our state's authority to set our own emissions policies and our cap and trade program. He struck deals with automakers to meet more stringent emission standards and set a goal of requiring all new cars to be zero-emission vehicles by 2035. We are on track and more committed than ever to our goal of powering our state with 100% carbon-free electricity and achieving carbon neutrality by 2045. On the global stage, California's leadership on climate remains among the most steadfast, stable, and reliable in the world. We are committed to sharing California's lessons and learning from others, having signed over 60 bilateral agreements and participated in numerous technical exchanges. And we're not stopping. In the coming weeks, we'll sign 2 new MOUs with partners in China and Denmark to advance our common efforts to combat climate change. The 3 international priorities I just outlined, immigration, trade, and climate, will continue to be at the top of our agenda in 2021. Thank you again, everyone, and I am more than happy to answer some questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I just have one question, and I know we only have you for about 5 more minutes. And so if we have time, maybe to take a question from the audience, we'll do that, but we'll see how far we get. So you spoke definitely outlining the 3 priorities: immigration, trade, and climate. And curious if you can expand more on how these priorities have been impacted by the new Biden-Harris administration. You mentioned that around immigration and being friendlier, but can you expand a little bit more about how it can support your work?
Katherine, it is a very different situation for California. We had 4 years of being in the sights of the federal government rather than being seen as partners. Now, again, at the working level, there were many, many people in the federal government who we were able to work with successfully around, in particular around the COVID response. But generally speaking, we were under constant barrage for California's values, our emissions, as I mentioned, as well as things like our tax regime, taking away the SALT deductions. So it's a very different situation right now. What we are seeing is not just a large number of Californians who've made their way to Washington, whether we're talking about our new vice president, first woman vice president, Kamala Harris, whether we're talking about our Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, who's been living in California and was on our task force for recovery here, whether we are talking about Jennifer Granholm, a professor at Berkeley, even though she's associated with Michigan, where she was governor, she also was living in California, is now heading up the Department of Energy as secretary, and many, many others. Small business administrator, Isabel Guzman, also from California. So what we're seeing is California's leadership now, and the leaders from California who help set our policies moving to Washington. And so the collaboration and cooperation is absolutely historic, but also the priorities related to a robust response to COVID and a much more coordinated effort nationally, in particular now to get people vaccinated, is very important for our economy at all levels. But we're also seeing movement in policies that they're proposing around immigration. Very important. We have 3.3 million green card holders in California. The most H-1B visa holders in the country are here in our state. Those programs are very important to us as well. And then in and around the environment, it's interesting, Katherine, I saw California as being the standard bearer during the Trump administration on climate. We stayed in Paris along with a coalition of several other states. But I kind of thought, well, once we have a Democratic leadership, maybe our role will be less important. It's turned out that it's even more important because there is long-term consistency in California's commitment. And frankly, you can see that not just in the federal government, but also in the budget that the governor has proposed.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I don't think, Kim, we have time for any more questions, and know that your time is extremely limited with us, Lieutenant Governor. So thank you so much for joining us and for sharing the priorities of the governor of the sorry, I don't know why I'm blanking on my home state's governor's name, but Governor Newsom and Lieutenant Governor Kounalakis as priorities. Thank you so much.
What a pleasure, Katherine. Great to be with you again. I know you're going to have a great, fruitful discussion with Susanne and Liliana. And let me just say, as I see them both on the screen, I look forward to getting back to work. We had a great trip to Mexico together, and India, Susanne, that you organized an incredible trip. And we can still do a lot virtually, and we will, but it will be nice to be able to get back together in person to continue the important work of our state. So thank you all very much.
Agreed.
Thank you so much.
Definitely.
Okay, wonderful. We're gonna turn the conversation to you, Liliana and Susanne, and knowing that we also have limited time with you both, hopefully I can just go ahead and launch right into some questions. And the first question that I have for you is for you, Consul General Ferrer, is if you could expand more, just hearing about California's priorities from Lieutenant Governor, can you elaborate on the importance of California's relationship to Mexico in addressing these issues of trade, immigration, and climate?
Of course, and well, thank you so much, Katherine, for for hosting this important meeting, and obviously to the World Trade Center of Northern California for the kind invitation. I'm deeply, deeply honored to be here in this panel with two of Mexico's closest friends and allies in the state, the Lieutenant Governor. Obviously, what a pleasure seeing her, and the Vice President for International Affairs at Cal Chamber, our good friend Susanne Stirling. So thank you so much, but also being invited to an all-women panel to discuss California's role in the international milieu is a clear example of women leadership in the Golden State in both the political and the economic scene. But to answer your question, Katherine, let me just start by saying that well, it comes as no surprise that Mexico and California have been strategic partners for a very, very long time, and I will go into some of the reasons why this has been so. We have a common border, obviously. The magnitude and the scope of our bilateral relationship and the size of its Hispanic and Mexican origin population, the Lieutenant Governor mentioned and gave some numbers as to 50% have a parent, that is an immigrant, and close to 30% are foreign born. And while it is clear why Mexico has 10 consular offices in the state alone, we have 50 in the United States, 10 of which are in California, covering all the way from Tijuana-San Diego border, the Cali Baja region, which is a region with great potential, to the Northern California region. I am the northernmost consulate here in the state, where the capital is located. So to put it in perspective, of all the U.S. states to this date, Mexico is the second trading partner of California and its first export destination. In 2019, the California-Mexico trade amounted to close to $75 billion. This is more than Japan and China combined. Close to 600,000 jobs in California are supported by trade with Mexico. A little over 13,000 jobs alone are sustained by Mexican companies that are located and operate in the state, which include very, very important companies and multinationals that are world renowned, such as Cemex, cement company, FAMSA, Bimbo, Chedraui, among others. And additionally, Hispanic and Latinos make up almost 40% of California's population, making it the largest ethnic or racial group in the state. About 1/3 of the Mexican population living in the United States is based in California. So the size of the population is reflected in the organized Mexican community, with nearly 1,000 hometown associations and thousands of civil society and lobbying groups fostering their involvement in both places of residence and origin. And the Lieutenant Governor, in answering your question at the conclusion of her remarks, was mentioning the changes in the impact of the Biden-Harris administration on California. And I'm very proud and very honored to say that obviously many a contribution that will come about from California to the Biden-Harris administration is also closely linked to Mexico, such as the California Senator, Alex Padilla, of Mexican origins, or also the state's Attorney General, Javier Becerra, soon to be the Health Secretary for the Biden-Harris administration, just to mention a few, let alone also Isabel Guzman, who has very close links to Mexico. So the scope of Mexico-California imports and exports, going back to economics and trade, as well as our shared communities, make trade and immigration, like the Lieutenant Governor highlighted, the central issues not only of the state, but also the bilateral Mexico-California agenda, not only at the state level, but at the national level, also, as the Lieutenant Governor mentioned, with now California's special role in immigration reform. However, current global trends and domestic conditions have always shaped this agenda, allowing it to encompass additional matters. Recently, these have included addressing climate change as well, which Mexico has been a world leader in, and development in Central America and Southern Mexico. And California and Mexico are collaborating and jointly focusing on this area and how they can help develop the area. A couple of comments on trade and also on immigration and climate to conclude. In this case, trade, years of negotiation, USMCA finally came into force on July 1st, 2020. California has been key to Mexico-US trade relationship and the USMCA ratification efforts. California's trade with Mexico accounts for 12%, in fact, of total trade flows between Mexico and the United States, and Mexico is the US first trading partner as well. Our trade also supports regional supply chains specialized in the automotive and electronic sectors, as well as medical instruments. And with the USMCA, bilateral trade between Mexico and California will surely continue to grow and consolidate in North America due to California's comparative advantages, which allow it to export to Mexico with several products, including auto parts, electrical components, plastic products, etc. On its part, Mexico has been able to specialize in the export of motor vehicles, agricultural products, medical equipment, and computers. And the USMCA also offers new areas such as digital economy and other very strategic sectors. And this complementarity in the markets has brought great benefits to producers and consumers in both sides of the border. On immigration, the president of Mexico, López Obrador, has put a special emphasis on comprehensive development in Central America, which includes addressing the root causes of immigration. And we do hope to work with California as joint and strategic partners on this issue as well. And this plan seeks to promote investment, economic development, incorporate migrants and other vulnerable parts of the population into the regional economy in the hope that people will stay in their home countries where they would most want to stay and be. This initiative sets an institutional framework to enhance Mexico-California cooperation on immigration, with California playing a crucial role in the federal immigration debate once again. And I want to highlight what we all know, that the Golden State, California, has the most advanced legislation to welcome immigrants as a whole and has institutionalized its support through community education, health, and empowerment initiatives that the state works very closely on with our consular representations. It has established, in addition, immigrant support offices locally and at the state level, as well as passed important laws to defend the dignity of our nationals. And that is something that we will always recognize and we will always have in mind and never forget. So the consulate works every day to safeguard the rights and offer legal protection and counseling to our co-nationals. And we work very closely with strategic allies and the government of California as well in doing so. Also, obviously, we collaborate with authorities, allied organizations, building a support network and working on a coordinated matter, multiplying the impact and making resources more efficient. So it is critical for consulates to promote its services among the different local actors in order to identify strategic allies and encourage respectful dialogue between the authorities and members of the community. To end, I want to just comment on climate change. Mexico and California also collaborate on issues that surpass political and economic relations. In July 2014, well before the Paris Agreement was signed, Mexico's Ministry of the Environment and Natural Resources and its National Forestry Commission had already signed a memorandum of understanding for cooperation on climate change and the environment with the government of California. And Susanne Stirling was a witness to that, since she also led a very important delegation with the governor's office. Mexico City, Los Angeles, San Francisco are active partners of the C40 Cities Pact for Sustainable Development. And Mexico is the country with the most states subscribed to the Under 2 Coalition, actively promoted by California. To this day, we have 19 Mexican states that are signatories to this initiative. And more recently, during the visit of the Lieutenant Governor to our country in October 2019, as she mentioned, Mexico City's Secretary of the Environment signed an MOU with the California Energy Commission and with Cal EPA. And this instrument opens new cooperation opportunities, including support for the application of the Energy Efficiency Code, backing in the deployment of technology to collect and manage data on energy efficiency and solar panels. And this is the future. So together, Mexico and California can advance in the development of renewable energies and the fulfillment of objectives aimed at zero carbon emissions under the framework of the upcoming COP26. With that, I want to stop. But Mexico and California are true strategic partners, particularly in times of adversity. And it is a privilege to be serving as a Mexican diplomat in a state like California. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Liliana. It was great to hear about all the ways in which we have such an expansive and critical relationship. It's not just US-Mexico, but US and California. And over to you, Susanne. I am curious from the perspective of the California business community, can you elaborate on the importance of international relationships in addressing the state's priorities?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Katherine, for including me in this distinguished panel together with Ambassador Kounalakis, our Lieutenant Governor, and Ambassador Ferrer, Mexico's representative here in Northern California, both of whom are great trade colleagues and good friends. It's wonderful to see them both. And congratulations to you at the Northern California World Trade Council. You all, Katherine and Kevin Mather, your president, and Kim Todd, who manages your trade programs, all do a great job. And I have to say that Kim used to be at the California Chamber of Commerce, so she's a great addition to your team, and you all provide a wonderful service to the Northern California region. So your subject today is diplomacy, which by definition means managing international relations, but I like to think of it more as an art form of interacting with people and situations, which is very positively exemplified by our two ambassadors here today. We tend to think of diplomacy as a national issue involving geopolitical or economic, cultural, scientific issues, but in fact can very much be a subnational or a state issue. And I think commercial diplomacy is key to California's success. And I think is showcased here on your panel today, where you have a wonderful working relationship with the state government, our very valued foreign trading partners, and the business community working together. I think we all understand the importance of international trade. I can certainly tell you that our #1 trade priority last year was in fact concluding the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. Mexico is of course our #1 valued trading partner, and the ambassador does a great job in representing her country, and we very much look forward to continuing that relationship under the new agreement. Our mission at the California Chamber of Commerce is to be an advocate and a resource for the business community, both domestically and internationally, and to enhance our state economy, and simply put, to make the state a better place to live, work, and do business. And we're very fortunate to have a multitude of partners in the state government, in our trading partners, and whether it be academia, trade associations, or companies. And they all are part of California's voice for our commercial diplomacy efforts. We think of this group of people being a large number, but in fact, it's actually a pretty small number considering our large state. And we're very fortunate to all know each other and work together. And I think pretty much have the same trade goals of wanting to increase our trade and investment. And of course, the personal interactions are what we are all missing. And you've heard mention of the various forums and panels and missions that are certainly all part of the commercial diplomacy effort in furthering California. And hopefully we will return to those days sooner than later. We have an agenda at the California Chamber, an agenda for recovery. for this year, looking for economic growth and job creation, something I'm sure that we all share. And we, in particular, are looking at domestic issues such as housing, transportation, energy costs. And we just don't want to take California for granted. Our business community is strong and resilient, but it's a very complex situation these days. And, you know, we have wonderful advantages here in California, our weather, our geography, our universities, our R&D, but it really is our people, our incredible and diverse workforce that is our success story. And as I say, our focus really is to create a good place to live, work, and do business so that our state can be successful both nationally and internationally. I intertwine the domestic and the international issues because quite frankly, what happens domestically spills over into the international scene and defines whether California is economically competitive and viable. We are, of course, a longtime supporter of a national free trade agenda, and at the same time, looking for fair and equitable market access for California abroad. We are very involved in international policy discussions, certainly such as the US-Mexico-Canada agreement, and we're hoping that the Biden administration will proceed with some of the trade agreements which are already underway. For example, the US-UK free trade agreement, the US-Kenya free trade agreement. We feel these trade agreements lay a great foundation for the business community in order for them to be able to go out and conduct international affairs. So we'll continue that throughout the year and work, of course, with our partners at the federal level and at the state level and our trading partners across the globe, and keep pushing away and hopefully making international trade continue to grow, which is such a vital part of our economy here in California.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Susanne. I want to thank you both for joining us. We're actually out of time. So we don't have time for more questions. And so this concludes the panel. So thank you so much, Ambassador Ferrer and Susanne for joining us. And the World Trade Center Northern California and Global Ties San Francisco staff, Kim and Liliana and Kevin, are going to stay on, as am I, to answer any questions that you have about our work to continue to build critical relationships through international exchange programs to help advance these priorities and help build stronger alliances around them. So we will stay on. Yes, this is the link to the International Visitor Leadership Program. This is the primary State Department program that we all support. We can also speak to you about other programs we have in the works as well. So thank you very much for joining us, Susanne and Liliana. Wonderful to meet you both. Thank you for all of your critical work for my home state. It's an honor to hear from you directly.
Thank you to be with you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very
so
much. Wonderful to see you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for being here. And thank you both for all of your support of our organization and all of the work that you do with our diplomacy programs and trade programs. So thank you again for being here. And thanks, Katherine, for moderating.
Our pleasure. Thanks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And for the folks that are left, if you do have any questions about our diplomacy programs, exchange programs, how to get involved, what they are, what they do, we are happy to answer any questions. You can write your questions in the Q&A box for us. You can raise your hand and we can unmute you, or you can drop off and get on with your day. So far, I don't see any. Do you, Ilana?
While we're waiting, we can always go over some of the details of our work that we do. Katherine, do you want to throw out a couple key points about the work we do through Global Ties US?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ilana. So Global Ties US, we're a nonprofit partner of the US Department of State, and we were primarily designed 60 years ago to help support the implementation of the International Visitor Leadership Program. There's a link in the chat. This is the original foundational public diplomacy international exchange program created by the US government. It identifies the world's emerging leaders in a host of issues. Trade, climate, immigration are, three of them. It identifies emerging leaders in countries, people that our embassies want to develop a relationship with, and gives them an opportunity to build a larger peer network of fellow professionals by coming to the United States and not just going to Washington, not just going to New York, but actually seeing and experiencing America and traveling to about 4 or 5 different cities where they get to be part of a professional development program. They could be journalists, they could be economists, they could be higher education authorities, but whatever the issue is, there's a whole program designed for their professional development. There's a cohort they travel with and build relationships with, and then they build relationships with their peers working in those fields in the cities where they travel to. So it could be Sacramento or San Francisco, and I'm sure Kim and Eleni can tell more about the visitor experience once they come to Northern California. But the point of this is for them to build empathy for the United States, to also understand us on a deeper level, and to also build the skills that they need to succeed. What ends up happening as a result is that when a lot of visitors do return to their home state and maintain their relationship with American embassies, they just have a greater appreciation and empathy and understanding of the United States. And it helps them to really build a relationship with the country beyond what might be in the headlines or beyond what they might see, come across us, through media. So it's a really important relationship building tool for our U.S. foreign policy efforts, but it also brings a lot of value to our the American communities that engage in this, because when the visitors come to the communities, they experience them, they stay in our hotels, they travel their restaurant. I'm looking forward to resuming in-person programming. But for now, I think the network has done an incredible job at maintaining these relationships virtually and making sure that these really important dialogue continues, especially at a time where we desperately need global cooperation for transnational challenges, what you're hearing about earlier.
Thanks so much, Katherine, for that. And there were a couple questions that came through. One is, how has COVID impacted our work, or how has it shifted? And just like everyone else, we have gone to virtual platforms. So I mentioned earlier that between the 2 offices in Sacramento and San Francisco, when we had in-person programming, we saw almost 1,000 visitors here in our cities. Now we have shifted to a virtual platform. So we still are meeting with international visitors and connecting them with their American counterparts here in our cities, but it's just via Zoom. We are always looking for ways to connect our local residents and community organizations and business leaders with these international visitors or participants at this point. So if you are interested in learning more about our programs or how you can get involved, how you could meet with visitors when they are here, we will put our contact information in the chat, and feel free to reach out for more info. Like Katherine mentioned, these exchanges are a way to just give visitors kind of an immersion into what life is like here. So in addition to the professional meetings, there are opportunities for cultural activities like going to a baseball game or a basketball game or river rafting or hiking in Muir Woods. Also home hospitality, which I'm going to let Eleni fill in a little bit more of those details, but it's just a really unique way of connecting people around the world and just building bridges and ensuring that we have a mutual understanding and can help solve issues through dialogue. So Eleni, I will let you fill in anything I missed.
Thank you. Yes, so home hospitality is one of the opportunities for engagement with our international visitors and our local communities. Home hospitality, as we call it, some people have other names, but that is the term we use, refers to when we have international visitors who have dinner at local community members' houses. And so they arrange for these dinners, and it's about a 3-hour affair, more or less. And it is consistently one of the items that participants say had the most impact on them, and that it truly showed them American culture. And it was a way to connect outside of professional meetings that we arrange. And it has a lasting impression on our home hosts, who we value very much so. And it also is a way to show the genuine nature of the program and the authenticity of the program, and highlights true American families and culture. And that in the virtual sphere has also shifted to Zoom. Instead of there being home cooked meals for our participants, we try to be innovative with having different, the participants and the home hosts prepare a meal in advance or something of a traditional cuisine that they can physically show on the camera and talk a little bit about. But otherwise, it is still something that we are arranging for, just in a little bit different of a format. I think that about covers it, but we do want to mention that for all of these opportunities, we would love to bring you into our network, whether that be for the greater Sacramento region or the San Francisco Bay Area. If you would like to be a professional resource for one of the many different types of meetings we arrange, whether that be in the virtual sphere or when we return to in-person programming, we would love to chat with you. We do all sorts of programming from food security to human rights and social justice. Any of these topics, it's kind of a you name it situation, and we probably do programming for it. Please reach out. We would be happy to connect with you. Same thing for if you're interested in home hospitality, and now is a great time to get involved in home hospitality while we're virtual, so you can get a feel for it before we go back to in-person. Any questions you have from here on out, feel free to email us. I will put our emails into the chat. And Kim, if you have any other questions from the chat that you want to follow up on, I will start sending our emails in there right now.
Great, thank you. There is a question here, somebody wanting to know a little bit more about some of the past Ivlp participants and what they've gone on to do in their own countries. And Katherine, you might want to highlight just a few high-ranking officials that have come through the Ivlp program. For those who don't know about it, there have been quite a few emerging leaders that went on to be not so emerging leaders in their own country.
Yeah, so I think the number that the State Department cites is that 500 current or former heads of state have been through this program. So some more familiar names, Tony Blair, of course. I think most modern day prime ministers of the United Kingdom have been through Ivlp, several European leaders, and a host of others. Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand was actually fairly recently on the program until her rise as prime minister there. And also just an incredible amount of Nobel laureates. These are really the people who are at the top of their field. And it's important to our diplomats that they really start building relationships with them, so that they have a deeper understanding of the United States and all of its complexity, and that in return that our citizens have a deeper understanding of cultures and can build and increase global competencies as well to prepare American communities for a global market. So we see a lot of success, and we're about to be recognizing next month 2 Ivlp alumni who have made had just considerable strides in the fight against climate change and the fight against environmental degradation that we're going to be celebrating at our national meeting in March. Reza Banfield, he used to be the vice mayor of Panama City, and Saeed Abid, who is a Moroccan surfer who's been leading the way and galvanizing a youth movement in the Middle East against climate change. And actually, I just realized I wasn't supposed to announce that yet, so you're hearing it first. We're going to announce them next week. But there's many big names. I do encourage you to check out the website 80 Faces of Exchange. At the State Department, if you just Google 80 Faces of Exchange, because Ivlp just celebrated its 80th anniversary. So it took a moment to celebrate change makers around the world who have been through the program and who have continued to stay in touch and maintain a close relationship with the United States as a result. But these are people that, you know, I'll say one more thing about alumni. I used to have a job where I had a watchdog role for these programs for Congress and spent a lot of time traveling around the world, meeting with our diplomats, you know, in the field, but also alumni of various programs. And what I will say is that when I would speak with the alumni, I'd always ask them the same question. I'd say, what surprised you the most about the United States? And no matter what country in the world I was in, if it was Moldova or Brazil, Indonesia, the answer was always the same. What surprised them was the home hospitality. What surprised them were the volunteers and the people like Kim and Alana who made this a career, who were curious, who wanted to engage. That the spirit of making career out of that, of the spirit of volunteerism, of philanthropy, and also just the curiosity was so valued and appreciated. And that's usually what helped them deepen their relationship with the country. They saw a much more multifaceted society that they knew about, or that maybe they logically knew about it, but hadn't really experienced it firsthand. So really proud of the network continuing to have these relationships, you know, fostered and maintained virtually, but we know that that transformational moment, that deeper understanding happens in person. So we're eager to get back to that. And I encourage you all to, those of you curious about to sign me up to do so, because you never know who's going to come into your living room or family room or kitchen. You don't need to have a formal house that's set up to host. We definitely want to welcome visitors in all kinds of different homes, but you never know who'd be welcoming into your home and what they'll go on to do. And I promise you'll have an impact on them.
Great, thanks for that, Katherine. And I know we are at time, so we will wrap it up and thank everybody for joining today, for your questions, engagement, and for your support of the World Trade Center Northern California and Global Ties San Francisco. And we look forward to continuing relationships with you all, or starting new ones if you are new with our organization. So thanks again for being here, Katherine. Thank you so much for your participation today, and we look forward to more conversations.
Thank you.